Joining us on the line right now is Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. Good morning to you, Lieutenant Colonel Peters. It's good to have you with us.
Hey, great to speak to you. You please call me Ralph. You know, the thing is, military retirees don't really have rank. The neighbors just want you to cut the grass.
All right. Well, on that note, Ralph, welcome to Mornings on the Mall.
Thank you. Great to speak to you again.
All right, so there has been a development overnight. U.S. Military has taken some kind of strike in Somalia against an organization, Al-Shabaab, which is apparently affiliated or associated with Al-Qaeda. What's your assessment of that? I mean, we don't have a lot of information about it. The Pentagon not providing much. We assume we're talking here airstrikes.
Yeah, well, one of the reports coming out, and we are still waiting for details, is that it targeted the Al-Shabaab leadership, which is a worthy target and a justified target. Now, Al-Shabaab has been around for years in Somalia. It is, you might call it an Al-Qaeda franchise with some of their own menu items. But it really is, it's part of this emerging network of global fanatical jihadi organizations who, while they squabble among themselves, nonetheless all agree that we are the ultimate enemy.
And well, and along that same line, I mean, is this something that we should be concerned about? Because we haven't really focused on Somalia of late.
Well, it's certainly, you have to be concerned about the entire global movement of jihad. And, you know, this is what Americans don't want to hear, but the fact is the fact. And that is, Islamist fanaticism, first of all, isn't about us. It's about the collapse of civilization in northern, eastern Africa and the Middle East. It's a collapse of an entire civilization. Islamist extremism is going to be with us for generations, not just months or years. And it's going to be a long struggle, and we're going to have to do things that we say we won't do, like play whack-a-mole. We're just in this for the long term. We may not like it. I certainly don't like it. But we've got to have this attitude that it's almost like dealing with an endemic disease that you know comes back and revisits you intermittently. We can't solve the problem because the phenomenon is a result of this civilizational collapse in the Middle East.
And Ralph Peters, while our focus and much of the world's focus over the past 10 days has been the Middle East and ISIS and Syria and Iraq, quietly over in the Ukraine, we see Russian military really fighting it out now, and it looks like this is on the verge of being a full-blown war. And now there's a report, you know, the president might mock Mitt Romney about the 80s wanting their foreign policy back, and he might taunt Vladimir Putin by saying that he's got a Cold War mentality. But now the report is that NATO, despite what the president says, NATO is going ahead and mobilizing a rapid response force of about 4,000 troops to be able to protect Eastern Europe from a potential Russian attack. This is a very serious situation going on in Ukraine that isn't getting as much coverage.
Well, that's right, and to me that is the immediate geostrategic crisis. As important as ISIS is and all the other Islamic movements, because Putin is upsetting the rules. He's changing the rules. He's throwing the rules out. And NATO's rapid reaction force actually takes months to deploy. So NATO is trying to reform it, to streamline it. And
hold on. The Rapid Reaction Force takes months to deploy?
Yeah, the NATO Rapid Reaction Force. To really get it on the ground in full strength would be a matter of months. So NATO's gotten soft. It's gotten flabby. And there's a divide in NATO between Eastern Europe that recognizes the threat of the Russian bear and Western Europe that just wants cheap Russian gas and to keep trading. And so we're seeing internal dissension in the West, but in Russia, you have astonishing unity with Putin's approval rating at about 87%. And here, please let me make one point for Washington listeners. You know, we hear again and again our own establishment elite and the European governing elite dismissing Putin. They've been dismissing Putin from the start because he has bad table manners. He didn't go to the right prep schools. He didn't go to the right universities. He's not a member of the club. And it's astonishing. Even Ann Applebaum, who's our best columnist in Eastern Europe, dismissed him as a mere chinovnik, a petty bureaucrat. This is a guy who 14 years ago took over a Russia that was flat on its back. He's restored it to be a semblance of great power. He's won every single confrontation with the West to date. I mean, he has done an astonishing job, and what our governing elite doesn't get when they dismiss him because he's not a member of the club. And the archetypal club member would be John Kerry, Swiss prep school, universities, insider all his life. The outsiders changed the world. Hitler was a corporal.
Right.
Napoleon was an artillery lieutenant. Ho Chi Minh washed dishes in a Paris hotel restaurant. Mm-hmm. The people that come from the outside and either don't know the rules or disregard them are the ones who change the world. And Putin is he's not even rewriting the playbook; he's throwing it out. And we're just arguing with the Europeans about, well, can we really sanction this sector because it could hurt the German automobile industry? And Putin's rampaging. He has invaded Ukraine. A small invasion is still an invasion, and our president's timidity, his weakness,
right.
His unwillingness to call an invasion is breathtaking, and Putin's having a grand old time.
Turning back to the president and his comments about ISIS, it was just a few days ago that when asked about the strategy for dealing with ISIS, the president said,
"We don't have a strategy yet."
And let me ask you a question. You talk to those guys over at the Pentagon. Are they upset about that assessment by the president? Is it that we don't have a strategy as yet, or is it that the president doesn't like the strategy that the Pentagon was developing?
Well, it's the latter. The one thing our military does, one of the things it does very well, is to plan and plan and plan and plan. And the president has been presented with multiple options, but he doesn't like any of them. Because this president is really, I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but in an honest sense, he's a pacifist. He distrusts the use of military force. He came to office with one correct belief, and that is that the military is not the solution to every problem. But he extrapolated that to believe that the military is never the solution to any problem. So when you're dealing with ISIS, we keep hearing the administration and our diplomats say, well, there's no military solution. Dealing with the Islamic State, there is only a military solution. Other things matter for long-term stability, but when you're dealing with fanatics of this ilk, you kill them. There's nothing else you can do with them. There's nothing else you can do. They believe they're on a mission from God to kill you. They're glad to die, and you have to help them.
Let me just see if I can follow up a bit more, because we saw Martin Dempsey say, look, you can't solve the problem with ISIS unless you go after the command and control of ISIS, which is in Syria.
Right.
He's on record as having said that. Chuck Hagel said basically the same thing in different words. And then all of a sudden, it changed. What happened there?
Well, they got taken to the woodshed by the White House. There is one absolutely unforgivable sin in Washington, and that is for an elected or appointed leader to tell the truth. And these guys, Hagel and Dempsey, it was kind of a Mutt and Jeff act. They were kind of psychologically, I think, encouraging each other out there, and they got off the reservation. They went beyond the White House line to tell. What they were telling us was what the intelligence assessments say, and what Obama has been hearing. But this administration has commissars, and they enforce the party line.
Yeah, sure.
It's just astonishing. And it was sad to have General Dempsey, a four-star general, walk back his honest remarks and sort of hedge and hem and haw and wring his hands. Look, we have so many problems in the world today, from Islamist fanaticism to Chinese saber-rattling,
right,
to Putin rewriting the global the rules of international relations in blood, and they all go back to the fact that President Obama has retreated from the responsibilities of leadership. Now, you may not like the fact, and it is a fact, that America has to lead or no one will, but that is our fate, our destiny.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, greatly appreciated.